China's stock market is down. In fact, it's a bear market, down 24% from its peak. China has been watching valuations decline rapidly in 2018. The government has yet to react in response to this, but rest assured, they're simply waiting for the right opportunity. Trade issues with the US have affected not just China, but also inside of the US too. Who will win? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to look at the issues going on inside of China, and I want to begin with the stock market. The Shanghai Composite is down. It's been taking a beating here in 2018, moving from the peak, which all stock markets, or most of them anyway, experienced at the end of January. It has been up and down ever since, but the trend is clearly downward, and we can see where it has moved from. If we look at this percentage calculator, moving from a peak of 35.87 in late January now to approximately 27.40, that is a decline of 24%. This is in fact a bear market. We don't need to sugarcoat it. We don't need to stretch the imagination. We don't need to do anything other than mention the fact that this is officially, statistically, a bear market. Now, it's not as if it moved into that territory and moved out of it within 24 hours. That has been going on for quite some time here. We're looking at this moving at the end of January, moving straight downward, and they have been unable to recoup the losses that have been made. We could see that the trade issues going on with the US have made it stay low, have given cause for concern within China, and it doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. Anytime the market goes up a little bit higher, it is beaten down further. I showed you when it was below 20%. I showed you when it hit 20%. And now today it is a nearly 24% decline. It is a bear market. Let's call it for what it is. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's just acknowledge where we are, and then we need to understand what's going to come of it as a result. I have not seen the central bank reacting in some sort of major quantitative easing proposal. I have not seen any sort of grand stimulus measure in addition to what they've already been doing over the last few years. All right, so I want to make that note. But of course, this could very well turn around at any time. You could have the emperor come out and say that they need to exchange, make this happen. But I'm not really seeing any of that right now, okay? The emperor is simply waiting for the right moment, and then they will react accordingly. I think that it's not going to be allowed to go much longer. I mean, look at what's happening with the currency as well. You could see it has moved towards the level of 7. Now, they had been protecting an unofficial peg at about 6.7 to the US dollar, and here we are heading towards that $7 mark. That right there would be 7 mark, I should say, not dollars. But if we see the yuan hitting that level, it's going to really, in a psychological sense, be quite devastating, because it shows the weakness of the currency. Now, don't let anybody fool you. Don't let the politicians, don't let any of the financial analysts, or anybody along the line here allow you to believe that no country engages in this currency war except for China, as if they're the only ones that devalue their currency. Look, they all do it. Every single country does it. They all manipulate, and the question is, will they be doing it on a grand scale or at a moderate scale? That's really the question. All of them do it, and they're in a race to the bottom. Now, the question I have for you is, will they devalue against real goods? Is that what they're doing? Are they trying to devalue it against energy prices and food prices? Or are they devaluing it against each other? Right. It's pretty obvious what's happening. The end result is a increase in the amount of that currency you need to use to buy the same stuff. And it's a depreciating I don't even want to call it an asset, but it's a depreciating source of wealth. I guess it's wealth. And that's really something is a terrible, terrible thing when it depreciates constantly. Constantly. The government makes that admission all the time, that it is in the benefit of the government to create inflation to wipe away their debt. China is dethroned by Japan as the world's second biggest stock market. This is something that I believe is really important. I'll show you the chart right here. Trading places. China loses its ranking as the world's number 2 stock market to Japan. You'll see right now what has occurred that happened to be something that occurred in the past. Here we are yet again. Now the Shanghai Composite really took off for a little while there, came back down to reality, but still its valuation was higher than that of Japan. Today that's changed. But I also want to make note the fact that Japan is a country that basically owns everything. All financial assets in Japan are owned by the Bank of Japan. They're a top 10 shareholders in pretty much everything. They own, I think it's 80% now. I think I showed you that statistic. 80% of all ETFs. They own a ridiculous amount of bonds. I think it was something like 40%. This is a country owned by a printing press. That is the economic model of the United States, of Swiss National Bank, of the Bank of England, of all central banks, in fact, that you would just print your way into prosperity. And if you don't see a problem with that, we are definitely not seeing eye to eye. I'm going to tell you that right now. So this has been surpassed, but I want to look at this in both ways. And clearly this is showing the weakness in the Chinese stock market, but at the same time, it's showing us how willing the Bank of Japan is in order to get their currency to be devalued so that it looks like it's actually winning. China says it will retaliate with tariffs on $60 billion in U.S. goods. This keeps going back and forth, back and forth. The import taxes would range in rates from 5% to 25%. Any unilateral threat or blackmail will only lead to an intensification of conflicts and damage to the interest of all parties. Just a few days ago, I was reading an article. It was talking about how the two sides were going to sit down. They're going to stop this garbage. And literally the next day, I read how more tariffs would come out. And now here I'm reading this article. It's totally a waste of everybody's time, and it's only hurting real people. Right here, U.S. goes ahead with tax on Canadian newsprint. The U.S. Commerce Department is going ahead with the tax on Canadian newsprint. The threat is all to the already struggling American newspaper industry. So we're going to put that tax on there, and it's obviously going to have an issue for Canadians. Employment perhaps will suffer as a result. Lumber is a big issue here. That's an important commodity. And then we have this. After the U.S. placed tariffs on European steel and aluminum in June, Europe hit back with a tax that, among other things, is making American kidney beans 25% more expensive in Europe. Okay, so we've got this issue now going on with kidney beans. So we had the farmers getting a bailout. Does that include those farming kidney beans? Well, let's see. Are they going to bail out the kidney beans too? Why not? Throw a few billion their way. Why not? Here. Okay. So this particular company, Chippewa Valley Bean Co., had been on track to ship Europe 60% of its beans traded internationally this year. That's worth $25 million. Now we're just sitting on our hands. Okay? And that's a problem. Right here you can see the charts. U.S. exports of dark red kidney beans have soared. Look how it has happened just in the last few years. This has really been escalating. And on the right hand side, and European countries are the US biggest buyers by far. Italy is buying the most, and this here shows me what is going to happen if you put a tax of 25% on top of these. Suddenly something that was, let's say, reasonably priced may not be so much this time around. Maybe people start choosing, instead of kidney beans, they're going to have whatever, something else, lima beans or navy beans or black eyed peas or something. I don't know. But if it becomes too expensive, people just generally they decide to choose something else. That's the way it works, okay? If, give people the competition, the possibility of competing, and generally something that's more competitive is going to win. That's just the way it is. Not always. That's not always the case. But that's usually the way it is. Not just on price, but on other factors as well. Different terms could be an issue here, but that's it. Okay, I'm not going to touch on it anymore. Look at this. This is talking about China and Pakistan. If you want to know about this alliance right here, and it's talking about the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, and the Emperor of China as well. If you want to read about their connections, highly recommend this article out of The Guardian. It's really long. I'm not going to get into it all, but I wanted to make sure that I mention this to you. If you're really interested in it, the link will be in the sources as always, which reminds me, by the way, I'm getting a lot of strange comments talking about how I never source any of my work and I make things up as if I type out all these articles and I create all these charts. Every single one of my videos has a link at the bottom. It says sources used in this video. You can click on there and all of my sources are there. So it's strange. Anyway, that's all. I'm going to end the video there. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, it helps to support this channel. I do appreciate that very much. And if you've stayed to the end, I want to thank you very much for your time. I know your time is precious. I try to speak as fast as I can while still covering all the issues. I try to not rant on. Sometimes it's hard, but I really do thank you for your time every day. And if you found the video informative, well then, I know you're going to find my books even more informative. If you want that financial education that you were not taught in schools, these two books have it all. They cover everything you need to know, even if you never took a finance class, you didn't know anything about mutual funds and stocks and real estate and everything else. You go from zero to hero in a short period of time, I promise you, okay? You're not going to be able to, manage the Treasury Department after reading these two books, but you'll know what to do with your money, and that's really what it's all about. So if you're interested, check the link in the description. If you want the audiobook version, that's at themoneygps.com.